Harrison Sterling didn't look like a billionaire the night he walked into the Obsidian. He looked like a man who had run out of air. He arrived earlier than the reservation required, 15 minutes of silence before the world asked anything else from him. He sat alone at table 4, placed his phone face down and ordered nothing but water. No wine list, no appetizers, just water. People rarely noticed exhaustion on a stranger, but tonight it felt visible on him. A whole week of arguing with the board about AI ethics had carved something heavy across his shoulders. Sleepless nights, questions he couldn't answer cleanly, and the feeling that the company he built was losing its soul faster than he could save it. He slipped off his Patek Philippe, a watch valued more than a year of rent in this restaurant, and tucked it deep in his coat pocket. His wrist looked bare, almost defenseless. He didn't want symbols tonight. He didn't want the armor. He wanted to breathe. And that was when she appeared, carrying nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical. Just a tray, a warm towel, and the kind of attention people usually save for someone they already love. "Good evening," she said, gently placing the towel beside his glass. "You look like you're carrying the whole world on your shoulders. Let me carry the water for you." Her voice wasn't pitying. It wasn't curious. It was simple, direct, and startlingly kind. Harrison looked up. She didn't see the wealth. She didn't see the hidden pressure, the articles, the titles, or the silent war inside him. She only saw someone tired, someone worn down, someone human. Rory Harper. He didn't know her name yet, but he felt something shift, like a door quietly clicking open inside a dark hallway. She added a small dessert to the table. "This one's on me," she said. No reason. Harrison noticed her before she even reached the table. The heels struck the floor with a confidence that belonged to someone who expected attention, not someone who earned it. Conversation dimmed slightly as she walked, a gold dress shimmering under the lights, posture straight, eyes sharp. She scanned the room as though she were choosing investment partners instead of looking for a date. Then she saw him. "Harrison?" she asked, stopping at the edge of the table. He stood out of habit, the way people stand in boardrooms out of respect, even when the respect isn't mutual. "Yes, you must be Blaine." "That's right." She slid into the seat without waiting for him to pull out the chair. "I hope I didn't keep you long. Things ran behind today." She said it like her time was a currency, and he'd already spent too much of it. Rory passed by in the distance, briefly meeting Harrison's eyes. There was a softness in her glance, just enough to steady him for a second before the new energy at the table erased it. Blaine opened her clutch, took out her phone, checked a message, then finally looked at him. "So," she said, "let's get to it." "To it?" "Not to know you, not tell me about yourself. Just it." "The evaluation. What do you do?" she asked. There was no malice in the question, just calculation. He had met investors with warmer tones. "I work in tech," Harrison answered. He kept his voice neutral, controlled. "I run a company." "Which company?" "TaskFlow." Her eyes widened. It was the first genuine reaction she'd had. "You're the TaskFlow guy?" "The founder, yes." "Wow." She leaned back, assessing him completely differently now. "You must have an insane 5-year plan. Expansion, public infrastructure contracts, AI logistics, everyone's talking about it. What's your angle?" He swallowed. This was the test he had set for himself. To tell the truth, not the investor-approved truth, not the magazine-trimmed truth, but the one he hadn't voiced out loud to anyone outside the board. "I'm thinking about scaling down," he said quietly. She blinked. "Scaling what down?" "My life," he said. "Not the company. Just me." The confusion on her face tightened into something sharper. "I'm considering a slower life." "Yes." She shut her menu. Hard. "I didn't come here for someone looking to run from ambition," she said. "I came here because I thought you were the man who built TaskFlow. I thought you wanted to own the city, or at least part of it." Her disappointment wasn't quiet. It was sharp, deliberate, and carried like a blade wrapped in perfume. "I spent an hour getting ready for this," Blaine continued. "If I wanted to date someone with a fisherman retirement fantasy, I would have swiped left." Harrison said nothing, not because he didn't have words, but because the words inside him were built for this table. She stood. "Look," she said, smoothing her dress, "you seem like a nice guy, but you and I are not aligned. I'm chasing something worth building. You're chasing silence." She didn't wait for him to answer. She turned, lifted her chin, and walked away, gliding through the room with the confidence of someone who believed she'd made the smartest exit of the night. Rory caught the moment from across the floor. Her eyes softened for a breath, just a breath, before she moved on, carrying a tray. Harrison sat down again slowly. It wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't even rejection. It was the feeling of being misread so deeply that it scraped something inside him. He'd spent months asking himself if the life he'd built meant anything anymore. And tonight made the question louder. The date ended before it began. The performance review of his soul was over, and somewhere between the echo of her heels and the weight settling across his chest, he realized something. Rory had understood more about him in 10 seconds than Blaine had in 10 minutes. And the night was far from over. The restaurant didn't slow down after Blaine left. It never did. The Obsidian ran like a perfectly timed machine, each table turned with efficiency, each guest treated like a small investment in reputation. But at table 4, everything felt heavier. Harrison stayed seated, hands resting on the edges of the untouched water glass. For a long moment, he didn't even blink. He just listened, not to the piano, not to the soft conversations, but to the faint echo of Blaine's last words, "You're chasing silence." He exhaled. In a way, she wasn't wrong, but she also hadn't to understand what kind of noise he was trying to escape in the first place. A shadow interrupted the dim gold light across the table. It was the manager. Suit crisp, expression polite but tight, someone who knew the cost of every seat and every minute it stayed empty. "Sir," he said, "I hope your evening has been manageable." The pause before the last word was too deliberate. "It's fine," Harrison replied. "Of course. I do want to mention..." The manager glanced at the untouched bread, the water, the minimal footprint of his presence, "that we have a wait list tonight, and our policy requires guests to order a main course to keep premium tables." There it was, the subtle request to leave without asking him to leave. Harrison opened his mouth, unsure what he would say. But he never got the chance. "Daniel." Rory's voice slid gently but firmly into the space between them. She stepped forward with a coffee pot in hand, brows drawn just enough to signal she had heard every word. "He's still deciding," she said. "And he's a guest." Daniel forced a polite smile. "Rory, I understand, but we have enough tables turning tonight," she said, still calm. "Let him sit a little longer." For a split second, the manager's jaw tightened. Then he nodded curtly and walked away, the tension trailing behind him like a coat tail. Rory sighed quietly before turning back to Harrison. "You don't have to explain anything," she said, pouring fresh coffee into the empty cup in front of him. "People come here for all kinds of reasons. Some celebrate, some grieve." "Do you believe her?" she asked gently. He swallowed. "Tonight? It feels like she was right." Rory pulled the empty chair back, not to sit, but to lean on it, grounding her presence at his level. "Harrison," she said, her tone lowering, steadying, becoming something that felt almost like truth being prepared before delivery. "Don't ever confuse your net worth with your worth as a human being." He lifted his eyes. She wasn't finished. "Some people are so poor," she continued, "that the only thing they have is money. They walk into a room and see price tags, not people. And the moment you don't fit the future they designed for you, they replace you like a bad investment." Her voice softened. "She didn't leave because you lacked something. She left because she couldn't recognize value unless it came wrapped in ambition and noise." Silence fell between them. Not heavy, clean. Like someone had opened a window in a room he didn't realize was suffocating. Rory straightened slightly, her expression warm but grounded. "You sat here with nothing but a glass of water and your own honesty," she said. "That takes more courage than most people give credit for." He felt the words land, not as comfort, as clarity. For the first time all night, he felt seen. "Thank you," Harrison said quietly, and this time the words meant something deeper than politeness. Rory smiled, not big, not dramatic, just enough to shift the air. "Eat the dessert before it melts," she said. "Small things help more than people think." She moved away, back into the rhythm of the restaurant, leaving him with warm coffee, her words echoing in the space she had just filled. "Your worth as a human being is not the same thing as your net worth." The sentence settled inside him like a truth he had been avoiding. A truth he needed a stranger to say out loud. And somewhere between the sting of blame, Harrison didn't plan to return to the Obsidian. But 2 nights later, his feet carried him back before his mind could argue. Not because of the date, not because of the humiliation, and definitely not because he wanted to be seen. He returned because of one sentence spoken by a woman who had no idea who he really was. Don't confuse your net worth with your worth as a human being. That line had been replaying in his head like a song stuck on loop. Unexpected, disruptive, but impossible to ignore. Tonight, he didn't wear the watch, didn't style his hair, didn't choose a jacket meant to signal anything. He walked in as quietly as possible, the way people walk into libraries or churches, places where they aren't sure what they're searching for, only that something inside feels still for the first time in a long time. Rory spotted him before he made it to table 4. She blinked in surprise, not the kind that demanded explanation, but the kind that acknowledged an unspoken truth. He had come back for something other than food. "You're early this time," she said, approaching with a soft grin. "I figured the water would need time to settle." The joke came out awkward, but her smile widened anyway. "Well," she said, placing a fresh glass down, "tonight it's on me. Again." He sat. There was no boardroom posture tonight, no shoulders squared to face investors or critics. He leaned forward slightly, elbows near the edge of the table, like he wanted to make the moment smaller, more grounded. Rory didn't rush away this time. She set the menu down but didn't open it. "How was your week?" she asked. He hesitated. People usually asked him that with an agenda, waiting for the perfect moment to slip in a proposal, an idea, a favor. But she meant it literally. "It was loud," he admitted. "Meetings, arguments, more meetings, a lot of people asking what direction I want to take everything." "And do you know?" "I thought I did," he said. "But I'm reevaluating." Rory nodded as if that made perfect sense. "Sometimes reevaluating is the bravest thing someone can do," she said, "especially if everyone around them is afraid of what the answer might be." The words hit deeper than she realized. He watched her for a moment, the way she checked the room instinctively, the way she balanced warmth with caution, the way servers often do in high-pressure restaurants. There was something sharp about her, something soft too. A combination that felt lived, not performed. "You must see a lot working here," he said. "Enough to know who's pretending and who's tired," she replied. "And which am I?" She took a second before answering. "Tired," she said, "but not pretending." Something in him loosened. The group at another table waved her down with impatience. Rory breathed in slowly, then let it out with a practiced calm. "Duty calls," she said. "I'll come check on you in a bit." She walked away, threading effortlessly between tables. Harrison watched her go, conflicted by how easy this connection felt in contrast to the relationships built around him for years, relationships full of numbers, deadlines, and obligations. For once, someone wasn't asking for anything, she was simply there. 10 minutes later, she returned with a small plate. "You didn't order this," he said. "I know, but you look like someone who forgets to eat when he's thinking too much." He laughed under his breath. "Is it that obvious?" Crystal clear. He took a bite. It wasn't the dessert that made him pause. It was the way she waited, not hovering, not evaluating, just present. "How long have you worked here?" he asked. 3 years, Rory said. This time, she didn't walk away quickly. She gave him a small nod, real, grounding, then left him with half a dessert, warm water, and a new truth forming in the silence. He wasn't coming back for the restaurant. He wasn't coming back for the date that failed. He was coming back because for the first time in years, someone saw the man behind the empire he built. And she didn't look away. The next time Harrison returned, it wasn't planned. It wasn't even logical. He had meetings stacked from morning to evening, an inbox flashing with concerns from investors, and a board presentation he should have been rehearsing. But as the day faded into night, his mind drifted back to the Obsidian, back to the warm towel, the quiet compassion, the way Rory had spoken to him like a person instead of a headline. He found himself standing outside the restaurant before he could name the reason why. Inside, Rory was refilling glasses at table 6. She looked up, surprised, then smiled the way people smile when something familiar returns unexpectedly. "You again," she said softly as she approached. "Should I start keeping your favorite seat open?" He huffed a quiet laugh and took his usual spot at table 4. Only if there's a loyalty card. She placed a glass of water in front of him, no questions asked. Tonight, the restaurant hummed with low, warm noise, soft lighting, clinking forks, conversations floating around him. But none of it cut through the space between them. "You look tired," she said. "I am. Long day?" "Long year," he answered honestly. Rory nodded as if she understood exactly what that meant. She didn't ask for details. She didn't fill the silence. She let him settle. That alone made him stay. A few minutes later, when she returned with a pot of coffee, he noticed something different in her posture, something slightly heavier. "You okay?" he asked. "Just another shift," she said, brushing it off. But the way she exhaled told the rest of the story. He tilted his head. "That's not an answer." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I picked up extra delivery jobs today. I work for TaskFlow on the side." Her eyes flickered, tired. It used to be manageable. Harrison's chest tightened, though he kept his expression neutral. TaskFlow. His company. His creation. But she didn't know that. "What happened?" he asked quietly. Rory pulled the chair halfway out and leaned on it, like she needed something steady beneath her hand. "They changed the payout rules," she said. "Rates shifted overnight. No warning. No explanation. I did 3 deliveries and earned less than half of what I used to." He swallowed. He knew the adjustment she was talking about. He'd read the report, approved its testing phase. His board claimed it would optimize efficiency. No one mentioned people. "I'm sorry," he said. She shook her head. "It's not your fault." She didn't know the truth. Not yet. "I keep telling myself it's temporary," she continued. "But every week, it gets harder. More deductions, more penalties, more unpredictable numbers. It makes you feel like you're a variable in a system, not a person." Her words hit him in places his boardroom logic never touched. Rory rubbed her thumb against the chair's back, grounding herself. "You try so hard to get ahead," she said, "but the app shifts the floor under your feet. It wears you down." Harrison's heartbeat grew louder in his chest. He had heard analysts describe TaskFlow as innovative, streamlined, scalable. He'd never heard someone describe it as something that wore them down. "And yet you still keep going?" he asked softly. "I have to," Rory said. "Leo's treatments, the rent, everything piles up. You don't get to quit when someone depends on you." A small silence settled, gentle but heavy. She wasn't complaining. She wasn't criticizing. She was telling the truth because it needed to be said out loud somewhere. "You deserve better," he said. "I know." She straightened slightly, offering him a tired smile. "Doesn't mean life listens." She walked away to tend another table. Harrison sat motionless, staring at the untouched coffee. When Rory returned, he looked at her with a steadiness she didn't fully understand yet. "You deserve transparency," he said. "Fairness. Predictability." "It would be nice," she replied. "But apps don't care how we feel. They only care about the math." She moved away again with her tray, unaware that the man she had just spoken to was the one who designed the math she was fighting. Harrison leaned back in his chair, breathing slowly. There are moments in a person's life when the truth arrives not as a headline, not as an accusation, but as a human story spoken quietly across a table. And there are truths that change a man in ways even he didn't anticipate. Tonight, Harrison Sterling discovered that the company he built, the company he believed had changed the world, had also been quietly hurting the woman who had shown him more kindness than anyone in years. And the realization cut deeper than anything Blaine had said. This wasn't about ambition, or image, or legacy. This was about responsibility. Something fundamental inside him shifted, and he knew, deeply, irrevocably, that nothing about his relationship with TaskFlow would ever be the same after tonight. The shift had barely started when Rory received the call. Harrison wasn't at the Obsidian yet. He had promised himself he wouldn't return tonight. He needed distance, needed to think. But old habits and new emotions pulled him back to the restaurant's warm lights like a tide. He walked in just as the dinner rush began. The room buzzed with polished conversations and clinking glasses, but his eyes went straight to the one person who grounded him. Rory. She was tying her apron at the service station. Her phone buzzed once, then again, and then she froze, the kind of stillness that doesn't belong in a busy restaurant. Harrison watched her fumble for the phone, eyes scanning the screen. The color drained from her face. She whispered a name so soft he could barely read her lips. "Leo?" Her hands trembled as she pressed the phone against her ear. Yes, wait, slow down. What happened? Her voice cracked. She turned away from the dining room, holding onto the counter like she needed the wood to keep her standing. Harrison stepped closer without thinking. Not enough to intrude, just close enough to hear the pieces. Another seizure? Is he breathing now? I'm coming right. Rory, Harrison said softly. She didn't hear him. Couldn't. Her world had narrowed to one person, her brother. She headed for the exit, but before she reached the door, a firm voice stopped her. Rory? It was the manager. She turned, breathless. Daniel, Leo's in the ER, I have to go. Daniel crossed his arms. Your shift started 20 minutes ago. My brother's in the hospital, she repeated, voice breaking. He could be. I'm sorry, Daniel interrupted. But we have policy. You walk out now, you lose tonight's shift. And if you leave early again after last week's attendance note, we'll have to terminate. She stared at him like she didn't understand the language he was speaking. Terminate? She whispered. For going to the hospital? Rory, I don't make the rules, Daniel said, tightening his jaw. The HR system flags every absence. It's automated. Harrison stiffened. Automated. He knew exactly which system the manager was referring to. His system. TaskFlow's HR suite, the one designed to track efficiency, attendance, labor consistency. He felt something inside him buckle. Rory's voice trembled. Please, just tonight. I'll work doubles all week. It's out of my hands, Daniel said. The app already logged you as a no-show. If you walk out that door, it confirms it. She pressed a hand over her mouth, fighting tears, not from sadness, but from the cruelty of timing. I can't lose this job. Then stay, Daniel replied. This time, a tear slipped down her cheek. But if I stay, I could lose him. The dining room kept moving around them, unaware, unaffected. People laughed over wine, cutlery chimed, a birthday candle flickered in the corner, and in the middle of that polished, heartless rhythm stood a woman breaking in silence. Harrison stepped forward. Daniel, he said, voice steady, let her go. The manager turned sharply. Sir, this is a staffing matter. She's not abandoning her shift, Harrison continued. She's responding to an emergency. And you are? Daniel demanded. Someone telling you she deserves compassion. Daniel shook his head, dismissive. This restaurant runs on structure, not feelings. Rory wiped her cheek and swallowed hard. I can defend myself, it's okay. No, Harrison said, gentler now. You shouldn't have to. But Rory gasped. Daniel, please, don't do this right now. It's not personal, the manager said coldly. It's policy. He pressed confirm. The tiny sound of the click felt louder than a slammed door. Rory staggered back as if struck. Her apron slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor. I'm fired, she whispered. Daniel didn't look up. The system logged it. You can collect your last check on Friday. She covered her face with both hands, shoulders shaking. Harrison's chest burned. He had seen numbers go red, markets collapse, algorithms malfunction. But he had never watched his own creation crush a human being in real time. He stepped between them, voice low and dangerous. You made the wrong decision. Daniel scoffed. Sir, unless you're planning to order something. The conversation cut off as Rory stumbled toward the exit. She walked like someone trying not to fall apart in public. Quick steps, choked breaths, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Harrison followed her outside. Cold air hit them both. Rory, wait, he said, reaching out but stopping himself inches from her arm. She turned. Tears streaked down her face. I don't have time, she cried. I have to get to the hospital. I'll drive you, he said without hesitation. She shook her head. You don't even know me. I know enough, he answered. I know you shouldn't be going through this alone. Her breath hitched, but she didn't argue. She simply nodded. Small, exhausted, trusting him in the way people trust anyone who shows up in their darkest moment. Harrison led her to the curb, hand hovering protectively at her back, not touching, but close enough to steady her steps. As he opened the car door for her, he caught one last reflection in the restaurant glass. A man who built a system that just fired the woman who saved him from drowning in his own life. And something inside him broke in a way he knew he would never ignore again. Rory didn't return to the Obsidian for 3 days.